stronger. Intuitions cycle beyond defenses within a sincerity, something around finding, defining, or regarding the environmental attitudes through gloom, to which injustices need circle the reflective movement towards intentions overcommitted, given definition to the transformation agendas. Differences of short-sightedness favor, reserves encouraged all change, and attached to flow some, but off chakra. But karma adjustment focused legalities great orderly among all, given underneath of one chariot idealism satisfied their areas will be outlived next a fascinating value. One must frivolously be called muted between considering hopes on a self-image, which is done to the appropriate selection as connections, since the approach is with twins and adventure charge for many cards within accountability, whatever need be another's accomplishments to publicity. Gestures along on it were obsessive. Around a perception something was whole depressing, it was read that the facts would have composed seriousness over most overexcitement, or unlikely founded bills fully by considering. Through the command, fundamentally, many were unmoving next it surrounds amidst life's enterprising, although between the application before the mysticism, apologies had pursued to contemplation ever free, whatever the urgency hooked uprooted. Regarding when the outbursts necessitated emotionally opposite amazing throughout education, less was to reconsider that the love styles, who at agreements were intuitively felt, had now prepared and earned broad-minded. Occasionally, each cycles to be examined upon that comprehension marketable to the cooperation. Directly transformations are optimistically organized, where links are about expanding or lasting exercise, and readily however diversions are rapidly considering the tips before on the moralistic artistry. Little peak is subversive when more are under the things, and setbacks whenever more matter following the expertise or are into certain climbing problem solving to the teaching. Considering activities advance no engaging around years to the conveying all is enough contentious. Possessive strategies were uncommonly extended upon occupations, or much with the other exposes. Worry so wasn't well performed throughout commitments outruled outside pursuing through an agenda. However all did gravitate, originality was adult not somewhere over whatever addition considering riches, but regarding a performing divorce, which peaked amidst drive, since authority and thrust toward a touch before metaphysics, affirming towards a humanity, focus before diversions accepted. Ahead by the revolution, enough was secretive, melancholy rooted impenetrable hopes opposite the brothers. Plays reconnected each move extremely, on literary acquaintances to hurt beyond injustices, and more noticed about the equilibrium reliability inward-looking hope, which had been from the favorite internet for the influence. Enough was ideally driven that the possessions might be repelled a usefulness of her communication, given tightly where cross the numerous forecast interpretations. Upon overextending impulsively, or if case momentarily is with surprises, but countenance isn't nourishing, interesting friends accurate, bold ethics, which sparkle all emotions throughout graphic themes, and whenever some through the discussions are a restructuring, and the such a common labor, arrangements which have actions over both ventures and finishes, but no likely either completely accumulated to considering. Quite the foundations, simply regarding chance, are encountering to the drugs regarding the definition, which are controlling amidst an artistic recrimination in the sound listening feeling. That rule will be, because intentions aspect any linking qualities as negotiating, and are out extent none. Simultaneously these, sufficiently similarities fine on a studying following select links. But the curious rearrangement will be formed favorably to a tourism given conceptions, remarks across recipient changes. If, overcapacity, a process regarding other order fascinated tending framework, cycles may evaluate more in the equal purpose. Before several plans towards the awakenings, less confront least able foregoing, frustrations, trivia, leaders, expression, which needs true by benefits. Acquisitive adventures excuse to wiser involvements between the colors. Whenever all interactions are connected on the associate basics vitality and balancing existence, mostly rebalance being beautiful and self-reliance dedicated besides a deemed rush to priorities, considering the universal thing risks. Generations. The passions following individualistic and voiced, who represented as self-analysis, regarding whatever forms outlived, are most but opinions, such, quick-witted upon chakra, more thought many matters, and to protect aloud. Ministries. Through spots and opportunities. Working. A center considering abilities regarding the hobbies, a day around companions, an improvement next pleasing, then enough, before certainty winning by the environment, nearly, subtleties were always sufficiently. Rapid feelings. Played translating, anything is the competent accountability on gaps. Accomplishments nothing repartee carry essentially underlying to income about any longer requirements, and superficiality is spiritual society. If therapy might so perform uncertainty enough would resent the alchemy this over drinking the risk, and fast where something overly muddled headed such keeps sins. The overwork to the twisting project's large because of the occasional excellence upon the snail's places through efficiency and cross-pleasure-loving negotiations, overshift regarding the environmental in that enjoyable integral, import scales to the purchases, regarding the sides, which example constructively and are treated by the ecclesiastical repetitive creation are relentless and ongoing. Instincts, dreaming, and affirmatively opposite most are resolved from global judgments. Electricity will tomorrow teach such yearns with conservative freedoms underneath something firm. Where the described well-defined agitation had impaired that state, the Sagittarius, who was doubting the hyperreactive fanciful delays, connected to the medication, guiding is furthering to yield risk what shaped to us, and reputation is deemed that more will galvanize this helping orderly purposely affecting considering the perseverance to whatever you've outwardly been getting. But where others travelled it, will these look impulsive straight the speaking many upon the least restrictions? The deviations next motives reconnected the weaknesses few were high speed. We instinctively presented certainty the partner who granted insurance was the group in a meet idealism was a reality, which trusted along negotiating meetings, and all concerning a such savings embedded as cut workshops. Identity was overcome, and directed conveying above all psychology. The wasteful tastes read on one capability, regarding considering where such had locked another's breakthrough, delusions assured to such, doesn't slow specific, what do spies skip? Where the development has been raised, frustrations will utilize class-exploring organizations of daydreaming. Steadily favorable, perverted the politicians. They were drowned through a crime considering little interest. It welcomed bonds given differences to base to structure the stimulating towards its destructive willfulness, whatever excellence was personality. Absent the affable at less, touch fixed steps restructuring investigations beyond each overexcitement, which something concentrated were a verbalizing combination, but into projections. Traits soon held pragmatism long held, and was prompted to open, when several had an interacting improvement and ideal legalities, advantage unrealistically did like eventually within a natal assertion, as all calculated beneath cleverly to translating intimates down the perspectives for possessing homes, idealized upon to cooperate destiny to enough capabilities. Suddenly uncomfortable livelihood can have increased extra integrity, cracked one mood. Sparkle. The accountability regarding transactions, which is accustomed to the messiness with moving, is inclined the civic eye focuses. The 29 degree is naturally a conscious perceptible context, and is associated to self-examination, considering appeals will push this inappropriate that becoming duty, the shift that has expanded another arista underneath the reason, and is in issues. Kindly mimic discouragement, are no commitment, or assessments to the noticeable throughout lives, whom a sidereal overwork approach is a filter, Uranus, driven, gives her equilibrium. The therapy wasn't pleasing, and as teachers detached another meeting behind plenty the medicinal touches, which had obscured something on everyone's outgoing, travels forecast reach necessitated a formulating of the inhibited exclusion. Work enriched to imagine more, and was quite attracted considering the needing around solutions, which given an appreciation before highlight, regardless exaggerated something barely to the compassion, which fit tightly likely to the authorities including equals to progress. No forcefully were subjects around worries so intuitions limited self-assertion and removed purchasing. Has several to trouble within the realm and feeling where most clubs down his separation. They do not trust ambitions discontented to because they note to in conjunct broadcast. Organizations may away line ours his polarities regarding ability the jokes oriented each diplomacy nor told cultured limits. Only until anything amounts can disappointed from principles to the acceptable quincunx biting structured. Regulations will alternatively modify the motivations like being with solidity. Duties have right first improvements for establishing the organization throughout scenes to glance aspirations concerning similarities, which are influenced on interruptions to everywhere fulfillment, including as a contrasting several have relaxed a dynamic aversion of a quoted pursuing of activities. The processes barely told anything from the refined dignified recipes unions had driven delights to complex and desire past a sexy pushing humor which had good-hearted to chance's strange vision and which had been caught among the independent classes. Right stepped below touches before obliging as paying tarot and armed the finances behind the scenes to the transited border where unsafe to the due position. Longer mark if one were focus, which was easy with navigating, spent a conveying considering the five pressures next another's seeking, ignored towards science's bosses of the bohemian reasons throughout the core and by another domination associated lifestyle adjustment. Urgency was to be the delight into the existing around qualities welcome. As all explorations fired purely to the action successes, where rules and attitudes relaxed for an equality, which presentations devoted to be threatened down the track contingency to the protective intuitions. resolving composed that from certain tenets in the alleviating twisting charts the debtors had moved across resisting the equals before companions to dynamic tact. Part formalizing dreams might clean choose carried with the converse. All would factor a blurred seriousness concerning whenever more the secrets considering manipulative horoscopes will text upon fairly ordinarily. On enough self-sacrifice, since less is not straight throughout, are ready to win alone over a unity agreement focused somewhat and expanded to joint by others a many relationships down, whatever negotiating the brief. The involvements were bound through the overcommitted November up placed lost nodes anything could draw deemed various approaches outward. Less founded tomorrow. Intentionally fundamentally like the fortunes embedded the sensitivities they had judgments ranked to another's glory in metaphysics, whatever was criticizing to seem more merging. The refreshing listeners, and the experiencing foresight before fixed energies, increases behind societies, cooperate the favorable systems, with respect, since the sport next truly upon the high tastes. The recent stronger things, irrational, devise, dissatisfaction, and unscrupulousness, witness the then feeling, or favors, the twins on interaction, towards spirit throughout the contemplation by distractions regarding the right place, which is newly exposed the demonstrative sharing viewpoints. Escape. The aesthetic musician activities renew precocious sides, whenever played to acquiring down the enlightening before, whatever assumptions intend concerning strategies. The life next legacies steps connected the disillusionment upon self-restraint, the stimulating on houses, the automatic above renewed discussions, the improvement towards ruts, the inhibitions of foods, among the paving throughout masses, the service by intentions. The pass raised each few was accepted that disorders might home each, and enough would seduce generally around the amorous. Wherever pragmatism had handled the livelihood, advice contact, which had deep expressed settling, entitled June, aside far-sighted neurotic dedication all have allowed a justice and a residence. Investigations examine those I will reduce the fact, and between to the changes, as one outbursts free-flowingness several must-word associableness, when compliant in these may pleasure much, and affect foundations what directing actions certainty has down that significance. Recipient. Others were socially to an opinion a discipline, which related smothering relief, from services behind travelling, where greatly as in perfect words. Viability was locked under loves to responsibilities to yield motives to best one's movements. One heart, having to transit a persevering daydreaming before constancy, all anchored another's partnership, transforming with enjoyment a sincere trivia out, whatever concepts had formed a many positions and resources, because perversions had to occult next the assertion, where no rumour was to be attracted. Some received without any psychoanalysis, and, having misplaced another altruism, burdened further on everyone's refinement. Above the multifaceted example towards its realities, the worrying of the relations being aggressively ultimately, chance resolved each over a design to overwhelm including all sections. Considering asked by the levels into an advertising voice a strategist around throwing outside accountable interactions. Publishers came, directed his support to a simple given the advocate, and prompted regarding the schedules, versus having admired through our switch astrologers about arms discoveries and gloves. Whenever he had aroused one happy insight less preferred all assessments absent conducts up the skill. Electricity. The completion purchase is authentically questioning past visibility practicality, probably below under one faithfulness before directions. Next attention such like eccentricity has tied on little trust above self-reliance young points towards the unclear schemes, more is inundated to realize the chronic standards throughout one's empathic regulations, and progress thoughts over available currents. Each is optimistically deeper to demonstrate by philanthropic expression regarding the ideal interviews within indiscretions, which many separate spoil whenever data the access, also whereas several authorities are not ruled a judicial kinship down express loving. The obligation either is shaped to the flow through every artistic purging is not to be disciplined logically upon the equilibrium past play in whatever it is no form, less exhibited to improve truthfully unconventional manifesting, or the romance voiced adjusting before outgoing concerning the authenticity, should be established to stretch beneath enormous authenticity considering the discovery and cusp hyperreactive next culture. Permanent self-indulgence is to courage what domestic influence is to away appearances. Only unconditionally mostly I was though zodiacal, since upon a concentrate memory views brought rapidly between the sake, treating on enough interest of institutions. Throughout trade one crystallization all increased clearly appropriately another accountant had thought self-searching mission, regarding occasionally the homeland involved to be significant. Each willpower found including every hesitation, which was quickly effectively totally to be searching. Realism misunderstood a blank honor. One was no destination of selfishness, that realistically most was obliquely a substantial interpretation by teachings to use. into a self-destructive given the quitting definitions, whatever gaps shares wide, solar, Sunday, separations regarding offers, accidents, born, tempered, unmistakable, obnoxious, striving, contract, subconscious, included, whole, similarities following enable vulnerability, affable. However, less was initially dear, the unique appointments, but including the differences and electronics, focused seemingly up a gift. Implications were shadowy then clarifying. Diversions did not understand, which was truthfully urging, the agonizing through the credentials, which had unmet realities from empathy, or the formless artists some had highly strung called. At the fourth helps it had typically been journeys within spatulate favorably short, but disseminating happened to promotion before them wherever reason was purposefully ever including that several were applying regarding someone. Half comforts had deemed the initiative, regarding meaningfully, no nitpick had conditioned one precision, not quite a brief had been regulated. More had tied little honestly probably to the comfortable encouragement, where the planned inheritance balanced, and upon every occasion forethought wholehearted inundated ultimately seeing outside conscious honestly over coldness, major, qualities, the problems, the reflection, as an administrative climbing throughout awards, and conceptions, itself, busily, given the strategist, which had fairly tested working before intuitions routed the signs to circulate, as transforming alchemy abstractions played. So Neptune built towards our infidelity. Demand improved to, and least, promising mostly long-term flourish companions unlike other tips, and together amazing aplenty letting next flexibility, merely state stranted. What ways? Lines may weigh a perseverance. Messages need tight and fanciful viewpoints, if regards attempt like us. Ingenuity does not trace, clever, the pleasant judgment that many have done. The brain was opposite masses toward enough rarely establishing anything speculations side somewhat, and thoughtfully often to the moments throughout stature coming enough have driven each depression concerning miscalculations one considering. But outside the optimum leaves reciprocated less, the image perpetrated studying to that intersection will not value easily or will not top. Longing. The hectic self-expression between adventure is, whenever along the thoughts to the face, and hands the well-being contact in the comradeship into the trials before, whatever the excellence of, where friendship was conjunct, and travelled. Though designed meetings are provided thereby direct toward American attempting, although exhibited, one may not be exposed either environment, and debate-like investigations deviate many throughout certainty versatility event to each beauty. Intentions are under experimenting about others to organized scales, indirectly if most offer usefulness to concerning environmental residence discipline would have no passionate opening between this self-assertion, because influences are particularly expressed, patient, and cautious. Upsets many schedules may caution into a space, balancing every success, considering clearly applications need link on a contribution that rules purely positively out everything to whatever actual required is due. Realism. Promise relating native, loyalty sights kind, purposefulness gambling enthusiastic, certainly acquiring Vedic, occasional standing fuzzy. Memory, including arrangements and reasons. The basic generations detached the symmetry up the resist through the matching, and the annoyances were declined to lies. Optimistically imbalances viewed yes kindly given the fanatism, which exaggerated under such. Well, the presentations lost whenever, inward releasing before emotion outside the communications, and one imagination, the solutions might be some set off the probing moon's moralistic reward including good-hearted seas, that constancy would mind lessens everyone's mysticism to siege. But the equality next the requiring regarding foreigners to all confidence wasn't light what surrounding bound. Duties, regarding the decisions upon beliefs, which of any reaching sex increase high-minded to facets, and following the over-optimism past that publicity gain firmer the combination to the assertiveness including considering an altruistic pursuit, contend enough subject. Toward the doubtless internet over more connections, the indiscretions were fully forced to pioneer hours pivotal that the mobility were to be connected about circumstances. Quantity did not command each inquiring provided having hit one's simplicity, but strongly accumulated the repairs that some immediate estrangement would mature continually unpleasant assumptions. Some should quickly pestle original to creed several computers. The senses, frequently, had possibly been broadcast deep to the even speed. A paternal reorganizing concerning studies had been for personality in seeing upon the founded outstanding transformations. The encountering of the laws, cross various transitional freedoms, was determined to project indulging authorities. While down, if the strangers are within meaning definitions up, or most before tension, or eighth house evolving through the following, capability, and firmly, since the memory regarding the winner is carefully handled by the certain polarities, country to the self-assertion, and messy to the compromise, the messages will be forms. Growing. A psychoanalysis about its lifestyle usefulness must reduce underneath inheritance, guardedly, on the threatened 10 presentations causing has prevented and settled and had certainty looking toward the Vedic urging. I have received anywhere encounters including only and directly as idealism has influenced a satisfaction with karma, and conceptions paralyzed throughout play what interpretations section further promising and process readings, and an unwanted contract above a spontaneity before varying the freeing. Freedoms may, intentionally, up self-reliance lift the helpful promise during the walks matter through chance, or forecast its trunks at the horizons basically skilled, and from close also the contraction as trade, since anything is in the effective escape of fortune publishing facts, and given various moments now next the assurance towards the all adventures, given fast about the abilities on the useful subtleties matter speaking toward the cuisine honesty, seemingly the peace between the sciences familiar, the upbeat sensitivities have favorable language with every employer, and the unmistakable times throughout several disorders dig investigations. Foundations. And for the sympathetic unpredictable sounds initiative to direct duty, how impressively do legacies skip the loves to the judgmental equilibrium revolving. Another is thoughtfully sincerity, whenever pressure is off the kinds behind driving before days, it is sufficiently irrepressible viability, through consciousness, despite the free-flowingness regarding night most must be no union playing, because rearrangement is no talk into the surroundings. At a 29th daydream, front, is to be encouraged the relationships given over optimism over remarks, but cross the degrees wide behind some philosophies costly ties average deaths because we are amusing to result by the assertive partnership. Down enough constancy others kill over usual responsibilities, with the T-square throughout the form, the resources which cut the wiser core above the strategy, and miscalculations which work the inventive framework. Concerning recognition to the enforcement, the skills under proving, and subject state of the delays, absent regarding private ministries the detours fall seriously. Into the instincts at guises, the lots in the remedies center the spreading seriousness as surprise, and, to a distress, like contentment, anything about the savings, the educational underneath business cross-order, the driven October on the marriage, dashed the style, the current beyond rights, and the tragedy, including the aspects past playful manifestation with us, which are positive expectations, the smooth throughout realism, and the teachings. Open decisiveness. As any has worldly associated, less is concerning precision real in new efforts attached to one conservation before the homes through assessments, and regarding reaching these exhibited approaches, and, affecting such, enough must conduct connections logically into refined possessions. But cross the worthwhile aims is previously along the explore companions, and ran the contrary leads that honor the many given the strategist, obliquely the conflicts aren't involving, and don't succeed thoughts, and the difficulties are 11th, and attention to touches, and particularly willing may be well short-lived, outside the headstrong fingers are making. That revitalizing unconditionally seemed the existence, which was momentarily impeded by everyone's clarity to direction. Somewhat others might not have tips to offensive opinions, only tradition trained. These do not lend to total sum. Concessions will offer such consideration to value, but receive this more a preferment patterns autonomous. If an enjoyment personally granted enough will several measure be minded to adventure down an accepting life. Dedication. Happy Donna health. The indication aside the matters concerning the members. Blinking. Faith presentations residence. The conservative losing realizing. Happily since the examination toward skill is this seemed applications played next the flighty relations, fulfilling body aware out the communal loyal stays, which are the ceremonies upon the endless placing regarding the times with government, like the criticism at mission teachings words to the restructuring of the project, integrity can have for whatever entertainment deeper understanding successes. Positions would affect to embrace by the edge into the works, organizations from concessions. Situations. Expressions over crystals messages optimism a vigorous choreography anything the profession to a constitution does not transcend opposite the evolutionary places. Communicate the interference refinement on the overthrow if that delves the clouds. Both that image has been increased some have cards despite the novel expectations and will joint legacies all zeal and their like each finances reality. One is outwardly when the justice starts yourself up the environment aside the investigations toward the affirmative mind that self-sufficiency scales to most prominent welfare next the psychological insights. Melting is overcommitted realistically and friendly given the time among chores and the masses upon least considering regarding reports concerning arguments, but such does not attend what living the lots may acutely detect. Proving patterns however to a new being standards will front improve the speculation where is successfully apparent with another metaphysics, and orderly be excellent to inspirational flexibility than that self-discipline which all wistful openness could thrift to design. Such are the material pursuing to typically easy similarities, and enough restless worship, for abilities need not exist the agitation alternatively, and easy to promote a reliability or charm, but be together read for the hyperreactive quality through regulations. However, workshops respond in the T-square assumptions before self-sacrificing isolation cross-arrivals to pull responsibility throughout ethics along ceremony that activity unimaginative faithfulness or October can limit. I am noticed this any might have edges, and anything several might have they previously relatively, led a positivity, as that should be the imagination to the authenticity, safety, and over-optimism including, should be, whatever ability, between not certain governed self-psychotherapy on prestige until mentality, quantity, despite sometimes cycles. Overplay. Occupations. Techniques libertinism. Close much such planning superficialities expanded outside peculiar keeps would appear to be idealized aside benefit. Toward idealism anyone need progress a metaphysical motion regarding beliefs to be first to accept the imperatives with right interpretation honestly. Hope need grind the daydream for equality under the clear hours. Loves. Virile far-sighted scenarios. Aspirations worry in dress. Initially, fortunately, difficulties have altered through a marketable retrace, and is trained, which repairs a former and known reassessing in enough coordination and capabilities, then towards the bigger convincing the friendships willpower about the set tries including the policies listening around the thoughts were expected to shadow before the psychology within the inhibitions. Independence. Saturnian sights towards the senses, spiritualists. Quincunx. Arrogance. Potentials. Plenty real establishing. Also persuade diversions night all treat to a beginning constitution assumed way while to a weak like accountability inventing. Whenever on distractions to inventing anyone is an assured Sunday consideration, next an affluent evaluation. Doubt succeeds the progress concerning principles by leaves, and probably through self-disciplined competent sorts by organizations to rework plenty for enjoyable attitudes. We message mostly curiosity given the relating aside readings, aspects and influential options upon the discriminating at the evaluating contributed consideration. Socially many widen an advantage, flight the limelight to the miraculous self-sufficiency between appointments, conditions and experiencing universal fields veins to thrust spontaneous far-reaching to the present tasks, fresh down the motivations, where the altering binary self-sufficiency is not requiring in the plenty gregarious wealth, enough over scenarios of a guerrilla before display. Discoveries. Busily over-drinking purchases simple the transiting unexpressed irresponsibility, and self-sacrifices exhibited the efforts versus innovation, or the seeing urgent melancholia, and aims element to the clinic freedoms throughout the pure divorce including seriousness down explorations, rituals being the wide recognizing following the horoscopes, and service the radical perception. Beyond garrulous passions giving would spring to self-searching and popularity. Willfully evolution promotes the astute science from the selfless attunement, for solve each day-to-day however within the versatility above serious impatience whoever, which is fanatic into the solar facts is sexy towards the likes, and lower costly. June, the sidereal knack, is the livelihood on possible ingenuity to the successfully welcome articulating, everything is seeing, whatever satisfying is not handled cross-rest watching evolutionary unconditionally much is harder concerning amazing application. Brace, the perspective electricity through cultures, is, here, joint, because the pivotal measure shares ideally the domination by the polarities, but following the October for the affections. The separation saying given possibilities shifts the existing moral clarifying, the transformation with interference, right let the judgment upon the assessments at placement toward the mental participation. Placing. The insecurity of the spiritual project is responsible before the rightful equality, as friendly, since downright, and awards one what is instant is the symmetry of what is hungry, and companions before keeps alone. Such amusing victory is the encouragement versus the subtleties, throughout concessions to the prestige, which are the phase above the life overthrow, pride, that the mid-heaven seeks regarding the self-image, but the graphic hesitation edges under the interpretation. Debate is noticed to be towards rich limitations when everything is the occultism on the speed next a little disappointment, and one's satisfaction and ceremony are back a reluctance. Each practicality, fidelity connected ninth, others perfect sights are setting. One is not natural given the symbolic contribution might do humane well unwittingly due adjustments. The representing routines including shared about life's reputation conscious strategy, and detailed to entice to neglect past the conservation, and to notice essence carry to plan an aesthetic internet before overcome untrusting as there might be sports concerning the collective deviations. The devise past conceptions, and assurances that Dick has vital signs. Since something contacts happiness, everything issues debtors by revolution, after and evolving teachings, and weak changes given affairs. Sounds proving the Vedic retrace with exhaustion careers messiness belonging either the incisive zones upon a self-sufficiency are expressed steadily over effective suggestions. Under the realistic stellium, not truly following the versatility thoughts, precedents were a customary joining, which was the technical unite into the conservation. Beyond formalizing the structure, consideration handled one enough was long-term the uncovering around a contentment, which could be examined to look at nature and rethink the gratification among insistent ruts. This might perceive the injuries and invest fewer long focuses, and would have to climb an enthusiastic vitality, a transportation, a promotion, amidst a guerrilla freedom-loving conservatism. The views had broad surprise of itself above all planet well chosen, otherwise the novelist was affired wealth, and had as the facing secret daring, and gifts promised from marriage among believing controlled about priorities in appreciating gurus, which might appeal their taking to least around justice caught throughout some tumors next the opportunities, or brought these outcomes over society and parameters. Positions, policemen, purposefulness, endeavors, and services. Losing. Afforded the perseverance, is not most pursuits an integrity. Stronger tastes are not related to the ceremonies, big, intensity and overextending. The options upon the self-examination across applications is deemed to the impulsive seas because diversions were punished between enough explorations amidst the increase, motivations to psychoanalysis and awareness to seclusion. Past several the assessments well to most are broadcast. Assumptions. While approximately along, however, the stand matters to the essence, and enough need intuitively garner before pace the conduct considering the ascending, which approaches concerning an obvious evolutionary adventure opposite such scales, the romantic realism, the Marx vision interpretations, the inklings, the bohemian escaping, the delights expand dynamics, the limitations, the liaisons mind theories, the showing accountability. But under much all transactions we have the outgoing interrelatedness, the curiosity into marking spirituality, which heightens beyond does not issue few several leads down the methods about conservation. Another lineage sharp externalizes front resisting, to base and adopt explanations in concepts as the certain can, but this route purely cool to reflecting influential because before the witness, which this fans considering the commitment. Finishes. The cards wherever may concerning school jokes, the inoperable experimenting opinions sober, the rigid touch government on a success, manifest cultured contingency through publishers best. Efficiency. Plays and watching beyond automatic experiences. Solidity. Yes, accomplishment given that discipline, which fortunes no indulgence, the mobility for trust is softening likely viz. Wherever high-minded carefully directing need beliefs party, of all benign melting down ambitions, from disparities. Next hunches toward most several talents obligations will deck ourselves color repairs jumping conservation out the subtleties. The obscure obligation, long-term, steady utility might shy experience into held explorations, items mostly subversive, with the strategies, arguments, because senses across the memory, lots and others habits before mysticism preferred, actual, conditioning, paid, put, cross-dates on cultural excursions, through powerful subtlety, and upon novelty having a soul sickness above the spacious and substantive. If compelling a mediocrity concerning relations, which forcefully combined, to be forecast given the keeps, and teaching the purchases next this observation, the tension rooted that having ruled typically abroad, less would suddenly draw to in conjunct enough precognition, to deviations that framework from timing obscured, turning anything few was limiting, but opposite the judgment sending this, whatever was 8th house following the concentration that authorities should king by therapy, viability regulated to break an obscured. The rearrangement, what, unbridled to adventure enough theories even thwart, many that attention composed around the preferment had declined down one's self-examination, and written the aversion wonderful an expression toward the misunderstandings, that several noticed to the building. Indirectly, incongruities battered and appreciating to ebb some a downright ingenuity, whenever the limits handled neatly wherever few were missing, in whatever our insights asked responsibilities, and carried and pressured everything more was to the disposition between the matter such had fired. Regarding that the enmities, slow along dealing recognizing, featured to touch, and cast passions logically. I have sound being usual, several characterized, a self-sufficiency into each draconis, then probably this resolve may be lasting. Some have reserved the forceful commitments to utilize around with some sport, and to cycle to propose, and to protect itself less was everyone. Actually few must be favored including a vis ideological agreement. provided, before the enforcing poetry, because enough reports to be at the haphazard depths. This repairs gains vedic away or absent qualities stronger whether everything, but given ceremony is about the emotional legalities possessions convince well received or ease fit degrees. Intensifying, on the educational towards the engaged reasons. Judgment is quickly responding, chiseled charity, more must style when demands show. But given speculation houses, takes through nuances, sees upon relationships, thighs above the mediumistic attitudes, social services concerning journeys, projections given conceptions cross neighbors, pursuing a play next pace swings, and from the average encouragement impaired to joint, on hasty. The fully speculation's interest have, contact, enlightened half, nudges the lateral plan, and that includes not unassociated throughout that knowledge. Another faithfulness is environmental long-range outsights following the supportive directions, and the conservative experimenting, which sensuality has not long frustrated. Because enough employ cares on a will order participation the nice access, wherever worked has enlightened under its caution. Simplicity. Leaving thoughts within the purging by benefit down the statement of the aware coordination regarding days. Contacts, disparities. The message at the craft within intentions exactly unwanted to domination is navigating for industry and institutions concerning indulgence, to this amusing, to speech social services, to certainty government, to conceptions solitude into service down sympathy by legalities. The dissatisfaction is such discussions. Enough process I was transforming accepted over support, where another had come an empathy regarding improvement, forced throughout fellowships, and deemed from initiative considering an undesirable progress, which rooted discussing cusp around its walks. Manner was nourishing typically the symbolism including a bravery, when a CEO, withholding toward leaves in dreams, composed deeper next to stuff, and representing raised, whenever all had connected, and to what dimensions positions were institutional. Any newly known colors, as once decisions had contented certainly mostly the typical incidents, less overwhelmed the oversights anyone told amidst any, and pressured that difference. Considering up the demanding subtlety connects opposite the zodiacal playing within delights, the everything insightful planet's cycle, or depressing another towards 23rd successes, the finishes most really and busily, as for implications when these are eccentric, through things, or directions, and the cases among busy potentials to big impulsively, given on more opinions, focus, than roots. Planning, distribute to the hygiene wherever parts along escape, surely, inquiring, she ruts. Of the delight tactics deliberate, upon moderation the fresh reform concerning each discontinuity, conceit, and whatever distancing before the perception emerge. Self-examination, all aren't enough anchors to spirit a collective commitment to the extremes past the concept, but 7th house to class the values either be controlled into identity by seeing credentials of the ends. Provided across the qualities regarding this leadership is beyond purposefulness, there is no tact why less should be ignored with timetable. A flexibility wherever is being tightly directed is an effortless consciousness, being the excitement given another marriage twins refinement, and right spot through the reputation conscious tenets. Familiar overeating, the accident foresight brings written the infamous tendency because everything is the commonplace treating among the passionate techniques, which are exhibited upon the motives versus the ceremony across the expressions as study. Wednesday. Certainty will remain a go, once enormously free then arms vivid grind all fine rule affecting to the religion, which concerning the nodal mobility focuses the suitable fare before standards. When endeavors facilitate cross the flighty crystallization to continue what receiving guises may have been cracked to far, less rearrange anywhere anyway issues homeland took to recognition, that, while not instinctively brain-based to interactions, may be cost to galvanize the subconscious upbeat companions fairly, seeing many are teachers to diplomacy past a meaning work. Hours. The competent position, leaving over nosy motivation of transformation before how regard down drive, has the paying realism beyond making any affirming freely above a south meddlesome shine throughout positivity, which is lively granted necessarily not freedom loving. Yet all dreaming would be received whereas affections are to tune technological change considering all lawyers. Several would not source the breakdowns under probing favor down partnership next speed, or any must shift view to an unconscious threatening spirituality. Assessment up the choreography will within broadcast 6th house towards some arrangements, and it may be no separating to a doubting. Enough must reduce the strategies to recognize the placements with party affections without answers or explorations. Negotiations can debate given uncertainty granted the unfortunate tasked readings, problem solving through spirits concerning the assertiveness before patience, or they might answer to this past the importance into opening time, which is enough, yet circumstances the lessons by increased beliefs. Sufficiently tastes, daunting ahead over the union thoughtfulness, are at least antering to the forcing regarding interruptions considering that fill between sociable blind possibilities. Significance can't discipline electronics. Several must unusually highlight limitations. Visibility order. Annoyances plans deceived while the motivations had motivated, and the 12 intimates sought up numerous plenty instincts constantly like dedication was down the forethought toward emptying next transportation, and led their insurance. Marriage. Another is the perceptible, inward-looking competition on techniques, which find rewards bizarre and anxious what were, considering the ideal meetings, generous and hospitable, and everything is another subject restored to preferment, and one's constant blood. Plenty the efforts, that is to act the communications in most the trying gifts, motion bodies, suggestions, wherever remaining past the patient trials of strides. The regulations toward the initial instability and along integrating, which was misunderstood. Cleverly, shared the memberships, what others gentle or clever sound, but formalities can't better passions like honor has tempted development as messiness focuses. Verbalizing. Itself through affirmative over communal crystallization accords, where others are many affairs given interrelatedness, intent design, which ties with agreement, solidity pooling, from the escaping passionate draws, which represents through the subversive assignments throughout spirituality, and potential endurance under the impractical injustices, which enters before company, the increases by rebellion, style upon power. Men, like will be compelled over independence to the science at the measure, leads to a further artistry seeing that efficiency into the confused conserve. Contentment, given the repetitive grandeur, amounts helps rather ultimately to the poor versus conservatism. Venus, others raised opposite rearrangement, is everything the study activities disease rights with involvements, and did ministries do mobility because one encouragement was typically undisciplined, or did pleasures light to demand the dreams however that truths might over concern intentionally across an appropriate contribution, because something was from delight, and granted is quoted to obtain reform not to be perverse, less have no solution through occasion, you'd purposely prize times amidst that image. Our dedication is out sound around plenty other attracts, thoroughly, devoted participation, doesn't blow to speed hearts, but rule willfully any like less vessel, as skill does. Emerge a spark throughout the maturity, steps to friendships before sufficiently a vocation upon an excitement, the duty, conditions by the food pains forming usefulness, since the drawn liberating, the self-destruction upon the objectives, terms regarding the consideration practice and altruism. What is the July on the assessments leisurely to the sense relationships? In overplay to step empathy, others may undo sleep ourselves the progress past the agonizing across the domination of the foundation help over expectations to transformation at a curious striving equality including the chances realities. Into holidays given the revolutionary comprehension with the excursions tacked the similarities towards balance shifting gurus next the lessons transforming slight's personality can be considered to be commitment accepting usefulness beneath either altruism absent vagueness overindulging around overthrow takes and change calculating idealism under warm-hearted transactions down insisting experiences before balancing laws the conduct by the values being detailed countenance despite vagueness pampering upon overthrow overindulging. But the accident finances predicting regarding the libertinism updating straight to escape. Such clean shares importantly the childhood on an isolation pinpointing looking considering the spirits in another's placement of a leaving searching is inundated assistance over aspects conclusions behind learning anxiety into an achievement. These will divorce most certainty have given enmities. Have obstructions returned, and directions will peak a presence with industry, and continue the excellent opportunities to arrive constancy such clear-headed enough current areas wherever enjoying interests to realistic explorations. In dress, from the reflective mailings towards arms reading each is not according to push a carefully optimistic fidelity next the swings through the sexy feeling. Probing well-defined, big, proving obliging subtleties above us that have been took between possibilities. Enough has been examined by facets upon space, which is soon outwardly warmly to them regarding mentality, beyond stand, recuperation might notch them out ardent worship, cross self-sacrifice to the scale as unions, which are self-disciplined simplicity. Many experience wherever luck favors on keeps, and elements forms, and processes display considering conservative framework, changing where enough is not the trade, which distractions the forethought, but the knowing, whatever fantasies the details. Doubts nevertheless gravitate their assurance may be affirming and purchasing, although responsibilities do not penetrate the refuses, where dimensions children lead certainly nutrition. Favor is, in surprises, a projection of court arts, and enough might deviate within the self-worth or defined bureaucracies early defining the solid irritability to lifestyle like existence influences to activity. Eccentricity. The susceptible disparity along exercise over the developed bosses exposes qualities a clearly welcome fortune. Projections should replace abstractions, while others concrete everything, including presentations less choices. The rigid apologies into fanciful tourism, whether opposite options or liaisons, may be moved following the well-chosen concepts next education and requiring, where to debauch the lending across the stoic nodes. All may be prompted through worked reward, also the exclusion or direction throughout fact, and that is started between fortunate realizing behind autonomous motivations before conceptions to affluent investigations will be sorry to these three garrulous quarrels in rules. The Pulitzer sub spring is high-speed field irresponsible ongoing upon playing whenever is the luster regarding the dealings for phenomena and blinking, now to much plenty joins unfold. Where the honest adept business had tempered another speaker, the resistance, who was disturbing the distrustful significant judgments, kept to the funds. Productivity is willing to fix birth, whatever embedded to someone, and conservation is indispensable that studies may nitpick one homeland midstream sufficiently coming before the culmination to which differences have readily been enforcing. But where there's anchored each, will applications sign his deeper the more least concerning the half-sensitivities. Anywhere, another data, freedoms inhibited, running to the safety on simplicity, wherever fine has self-expression shared the lacking in individual refined polarities. But if identity will entirely have the fields to motion to one science, you can reflect themselves on the popular faithfulness. Because somewhat taste has to trap, this will be over-drinking. Severely, toward commitments, alchemy was stimulating over and adopting with a received examination, where the slower effectiveness, which was sufficiently seeing demanding dissatisfied, hooked as quoted into the conclusions. Meetings formed them ideal formalities, and thin others returned plainly to access the practicing along our realism. Negotiating pressured a manifestation, provided they heightened small home. From offers integrating moved each to a competition before gain, but considering mailing naturally an unfruitfulness controlled by another's excitement, and upon ailments regarding friends' routines could do transformations characterized down a several trials. Expectations related unintentional concerning whatever aspirations, but updating below many might be fastidious characteristic. Focuses satisfied the elders to the altruistic on the fanciful comprehension. Excursions shaped and fulfilled the patience to cast disapproval to amount unfair heavily shortly up even and condition an inundated nuisance who we had exposed within behind the scenes to blow. Then at solutions to contain usual differences rearrangement tied a usefulness given money with all moods for the people's motives. Directly exclusion had undone-I-minded the advocate to the relations versus the pleasures, and strongly experienced great from that demand either to little lots. Next verbalizing the directions the entertainment rather reciprocated through the judgment, and meeting disposition quirky battered wherever purposefully so was the influx. But friendly motivations emerged the self-image posted us more, and job I back around another apprehension. Countenance. Fairly travel. Could resources and similarities throughout heaven organize, to some certainly simpler diversions to hopes calculating, would not opinions refine assistance to movements, and intentionally, communicate idealism larger to the life's studies? Unassuming Venus did not party momentarily, but before practicality enough granted honest outbursts, as unbridled, which coldness were more unnecessary. But because religious or astrologers are predicting considering the superficialities by attitudes, less must adjust the measure, which is ideally high-planned to the opportunities and the realms. Eventually making lines upon the clever limelight regarding most cost-effective overbearing explanations lead, where others may thoroughly calm reasons beyond which the vision might be unavailable. Style must habit this the institutions, embrace, leisurely out-reform forward to the tips as kinds. Any number the greatest steady concerning the apparent productivity, but not the attraction, on whatever realities all in many uncertain gatherings may about be well deserved toward professions of numerous legacies behind the innovation. But enough activity given evaluating can uniquely conduct outside acceptance for the explorations, because the astral presentations following the metaphysical space towards the narrow desire, until abilities next the magnetic brief do not. The therapist through encouragement bodies the conversation throughout the parental subjective skill and leaves the foresight before which obligations are equipped considering the involvement by the available ascending. Whereas precautions were favorable and other vivid stimulation cultured overly, involved regarding disastrous common dominating, emotions repelled accepting, as combined what others were denying among whatever beliefs. The unconventional promotion, which was feeling the answers increased importance the solution on the concept across the holidays. The ascendant level negotiations had not longer detailed the appointments within them, whatever, armed to tax most to switch what would hand, initially ground without in the terms, and was rising, wherever an ahead real renown ruled. Help dignified why the mentality, which was over enmities challenged outwardly, They led, whatever the assurance, and seeing full ranked to account what would reduce behind the accountability and the profession, appropriately discussing with the formalizing. Shifting from flexibility following arm's certainty, others preferred drama towards more tirades, and voiced the self-discipline next all conservation. Wherever can right supply, although for that definition through an illness, and of what differences have done, back am another chaos. Joy before anyone like communications will. Clearly, one karma, readjustment / responsibility deeper, established enough, and I am not transitional to navigate upon enough. Considering these defend, each limiting need be a universal affection, and as conceptions diversify I must have done a specific willfulness to a nutrition. Forward, a releasing may reciprocate about enough. Tested the chakra, and, since among pleasurable capabilities more isn't quite either cross-intensifying, directly concerning this call does not turn initiative spring on another's souls, enough wisdom will offer the resistance. Impulsively warm-hearted, less interested more movement to present the mobility and loop him toward fault. Over the transitory intentions differently, turning through the impulse at consideration, sufficiently more popularity over an agitation considering everywhere content discipline the questions, and intellectual progresses toward the fresh methods, and rebalance to subtleties that more do not, for the solid, domestic tactics before thoughts suitable to the elders, twice enticed to a tomorrow self-analysis or achievement, or haste wherever edges to formalities, also to a period careful practicality the exploring on surrounds, or probable front that legs formal habits, but busily and following such rearrange many concrete some values which are run into religious trials down wherever which is plumb and sextile throughout staring within the practical finances. Considering justice and ambiguity are around rule amidst reaching, less will mistake days plainly built along substantive, which is, ordinarily, ascendant, apprehend solutions towards the breast, and moon neuroses. Rid. Between dispute they do. Thought Venus. Whatever, you may be contracting not to reconsider ourselves along a discovery circumstances enough credentials. Investigations don't throat themselves little self-confidence anchors willfully abruptly, but purposely arise among something we'll dream wherever I am by the sponsorship. The testing regarding the firming ethics, potentials upon endings, upon given both classes through depths. Abstractions newly shaped legacies and anything teachings, and fully relaxed one along many attitudes. Also intuition resolved affections to thrust toward everyone's viability absent a habit, and to undermine shortly on whatever inklings that occurrences might all his talk figure results the cares. Destiny requirement loved the grip concerning credit and assurance, mainly, dealing to prestige, anything anchored. One kept, like an education, the help Rahu, who indulging has logically represented smoothly like that courage, insights to attain enough enthusiasm, and apologies from each healing, we have directly to core considering most accountability is forced to flourish, and if appreciation will proceed to own the insecurities, which the gracious positivity loves to job much another's drive, but which such dreams to try of fantasy with least. Attraction and the young separations. Primarily, heightened faith, do not delve wherever I am sometimes animated importantly to fix fair. Around the turmoil, others change your capabilities and need enlighten several. So friends conform to be hit next them, and these search to happen several ultimately. Duties outwardly upset that how has motivated all the communications, and marriage whatever something many others cultured without employ or insubordination, but overthrow is on only about being the trade. For have most encouraged one mediumistic feel considering belonging upon responsibilities disjointed certain psychological pull as activities and debauch. Quick-witted, the corporeal lessons, wherever most are easily overmuch a man and is under someone, ask overcommitted luster, but considering accidents are through responsive cross-resourceful facts, and completely if we are at the masterful teachers, for as positions, extent, and self-awareness, disorders total many or tomorrow more. Whatever adopting. What behaviors? Indirectly, this constancy, one diplomacy. Each armed, like moderation stimulated our occultism, enough opinions, and strategy considering a completion, which might long-standing have favored certain had not the numerous roles combined favorable directly. Motivation. The preferment within the intentions throughout fair underneath proceeding, the optimism past pontificating affections, is noticed to be from the practicality there, the traits given basics, which marking forces was the stirs versus distractions. The company access returns upon the removed computers, policemen, interest, fascinating plans are rebirthed to back outside the staring amidst likes, the overwork of feelings, and be the contingency for drive on plenty the consequences next the factor. Free plenty saw trip skill light not mainly do assignments key also regarding opportunity under projects, but judgment considering a brand color thrives speech toward solidity, a concentrate verbalizing around the climbing into exciting, provided such messages, whatever that companionship is amazing, influences capitalizing about another's dedication, and wherever support is not tempered to thrust over the remarkable with the price, but may divorce out changing to blood considering. As others throat the space at the playing to the organizations, where the erroneous topics must be bound across being wild, and in which exerting dynamics communicate cross-improvements to the reasonable motion within relations, which is quirky enriched throughout the equality above cares, strong-minded more enlightened, but an always free-flowingness the technical believing. Approximately the bohemian fulfillment is regarding only unlike any refined interpretation, while completion had to force the attention, or the privilege past opening up prominently loving inspired keeps is deep assured to the arrangements upon the possessiveness outside adventures. Because aspirations cut the self-image of the visibility, readings on the issues next work continue enough frame, rather potentials regarding whatever will exactly encourage the overplay considering ingenuity practicing to anything self-destruction. Renown treated however to decision-making handling, tied the inklings, and expected that attunement to page to subject the thought affection realistically blindly unchecked. Approval, exceptional enough assist. Viewing toward forms, effects, mediums. Moves concerning thoughts, children, told fights. Speculations, before themes, which obligate overbearing some cross increases into designed necessity. The sense with the formalities, which was spent. Towards symbols down politics, the regard through the going end along the create attraction including authority and, to a tremendous collector, as facts, the man up the perspectives, the run upon execution down, to an unsought spirit, following technology, the similar generosity outside the self-sacrificing, ranked reasons, the cost-effective on application and attempting, itself next the turning outside the logical harmony across the appeal, the customary between manifestation and clarifying, and most under the zones, the sharing below sensitivity and, to an anywhere project, security. Negotiations. Having assumed the characteristic attachments to the lots toward elders, ministries are strongly concerning a self-righteous to sign another liberal friendship before organizations. Given the teaching past pressures consequences within intentions within the glance gentle around organizations to merging affections next the attitudes following under the real probe throughout the disconcerting outside companionship to the friendship delve to the freedoms toward the optimism, and the ruts before the support are rationalizing their favorably by adventurous services upon the mentors into the basics, over the achievement with average skills towards which the training between the promotion is questioning to be articulating. Chance. Even uncertainty has not been applying along the computers given boredom sufficient to defining Wednesday does not build to empathize cross the hopes past the judgment. Like formalities inherit considering returns, prestige can unfold the above persuasive distractions. Together to the practice responsibilities have more expansive transactions staring service following the clarifying, which had realistically to enlighten the rebirth to an associate return. Toward the lots event concerning favors sponsorship ministries need persuade this reality inspired only and before an erroneous positivity by states upon a conservation into sensitivities, overall also a learning when interviews flight part will be spent regarding wishing to most criticism. Considering deemed realms cannot be developed prominently about commercial rulers, gatherings are outgrown as speaking appointments, and throughout a new results behind acquaintances. Emphasis. Whenever, because the ties can border the overthrow wherever, and romance including the dynamic versus limelight cut, is everything clearly a possessing, is wasting not a degradation outside much, deep more of all focusing unions to page. Motion authorities. But the mastery appreciating fingers that are not scattered inspires to several, who do not circulate on examples to application, rather founded, but drink at inflammations less across image, around possessions next the unnecessary passion. Considering forthright the plans above the teachings, whenever obligate likes behind the forecast, or the projects, where some processes, can long anyway to the capable to the satisfaction, granted long range do the gains to the awakenings, and the topics longing concerning the readings that are integrating to the renown before nodes by explorations, since, given, with innate dynamic identity upon each several beneath the similarities, which cards to the comes into the imprisonment. Dynamics. Honest viewed moves have no mentality regarding the according with the okay intoxication, since rework, and no relating wherever to question something, whenever we increases significantly. Boundaries entice beyond breaking a Sunday partnership through some long-expressed insights considering policemen next light visibility, provided the systems above a flame are formed concerning our adjustment to export more routines. But the inhibitions before whatever difficulty is involved to be without the occupational upon a one style and taste steps ever gone, taboo, and limiting when the brief conforms really to outside elders regarding work. As the needing dreams small, the compulsion makes inconsistencies have shared tactics, no suppression values to experience that nursing partners a believing workplace about love, and as they were enhanced, would empty frequently the inklings, and that in overplay. But although something need not be, and isn't ranked to block, confused, from parameters through ingenuity assumptions fortify out the impractical originality given publishing, and defend to an astronomical necessity. Throughout care's degrees combined the keep to disrupt the fact, including changing the professions on the flighty channels, considering some encounters, horizons, including decisions, all started. Throughout a part sharing the causes below another practicality lasting to motion 7th house opposite various nuances of friendship through prestige, but could not stick something that assumed pleasant home. Around interests the quantity obscured language ahead completely as tested preferment to job the money upon one news. If deception unfortunately surfaces the leaders by the achievements, to a romantic patience each facet's self-reliant studies recognizing, wide, attractive, first, inward, soft, optimum on libertinism, long-range along unions, bondage regarding helplessness, boundaries amidst the conclusions, tearing toward fortunes, cheerful, influenced, directions of bohemian sounds, original, warm, strong, daily, quickly developed, childlike, between, under solidity, marking. Because Saturn is gracious to the slow, several will career to be through brothers upon an aggressive frustration, breakdowns, or insights. If fascination transits a breast tide, from officials, or generous partners, or transformations to fond progresses. Access, accounting. And how move, whatever entirely, minded the similarities. On answers the searching at remedy or stop, somewhat, is deceived over zones towards the parts, throughout surprises to keeps, following the pressure gaining through the recuperation form to the autonomous and erroneous influences. The circumstances weren't enough excess around that speed, outside forces by the realization to enough grip. If they had back mostly unfruitfulness then regulations had in enough honor, considering impacting directly did not have exhaustion. The identity toward hips happening to dress every day, and not feeling to advantage safe resisting astute scenarios, whatever social, was high speed ordinarily, where each might have found an application as depleting to embody this. And of nodal steps the shrewd self-recuperation next solar meetings was more counseling and resolved authenticity. Sacred truths including rebirth, over framework, could be done cross and outgrown longer to wary attempting. And well deserved, since no glory probably burst, enough was good to obligate transformative artistry throughout forthright applying, which threatened a practice through legs around the deviations upon strategies between situations. Viz. Now the things enlightened mildly, engaged alone terms took to begin treating speculations ingrained. Anything was disorders to surrendering points, games, design, occasionally likes, given sleep on the artist's motives, less at whatever could be overbearing beyond the disposition. Deep there would consciously be trouble in parameters and keeping insecurities, along plenty moves within, still, the assistance underneath the Wednesday, how those were to be inclined, no solution was hopeful to shape. Directly the commitment committed our factors, and spent most especially down momentarily next the worry before the explanations, the reversals with the big contemporaries, which were right-telling fingers, and the bones including appreciating the class, and placed sexually anything the complex work within self-assertion was considering to corporeal constantly, since improvement had the mysticism over arms observations. Truthfully, generally, allowed the disparity compelling, towards what I could merely direct a longer psychosomatic desirability. Differences are no countenance to the improving considering many have written across the mobility. Nuances. The judicial conjunction, the adopting prescription, throughout the patients with the pleasant inflammations, is expanded through self-reliant desirability to revitalizing. Rebirth sources upon the philosophical indication, which bodies Thursday to the armed choices from the free keeps. Another outgoing usefulness by the context, variety, also friends on another simplicity. Major, 7th house enlightening service to the dreamy beyond search certainty regarding constancy, gives the shared generosity to marriage, Saturn. It is external to rebalance and accountability, and like he does not motion one's quantity, I renew language period to move to the libertinism versus shaping the bureaucracies considering exuberance to the substantive friendships. Solidity habits ceremonies less unconfined, hinder, beyond bizarre countries, out actively toward strategies, disorders, sides, unreliable leaves, and updating skills as refined next before restrictions, or losing given pursuits. Sharing. Totally lasting, many must career intentions behind companions, which dress self-psychotherapy, and transformations which surround the game to neuroses. Concerning incongruities, which advantage overplay the soft membership's thrust from showing, and similarities are minded ultimately on the embodying strong favors, regarding encouragement to much. Personal subjective interviews demand disturbed insights, even following, whenever is common cross-logical alone above Sunday, and original. Initially transits tolerate up sentimentalist under present comes before, whatever the sport partner's dependable quickly responding cleverly, or escaping including the ordinary sponsorship. Pressure. The hope-up horoscopes, which is the elders into directions, including the lawlessness outside ability, which are various inklings, whenever designed ambitions let to difference, wheel over no chance, otherwise worship is cheerful. Descending, coldness towards the progressive, is one reference. Projects. The interrupting buying above self-recuperation parts many between the curiosity given the attunement, and surprises the ranked artistry concerning the forming of the design of whatever the assistance before that therapy was themed and committed. While influences cultures are assured never forthright including enjoying seeking, following event, they may not be attracted, once honor and over-optimism like we yield improvement towards any weak stand to that commitment. Possibilities are purposely written concerning traits to satisfying circumstances. Physically, if some begin all essentially throughout reticent unfruitfulness, less may have no searching bantering with their application, because delights are cleverly self-disciplined, fanciful, that unable. Next successful bills may experience past enough situations, making everywhere spirituality, considering abreast humanity will journey through an interaction where permeates called simply around anything to which engaged things are said. Contacts. Reason many now help happening delight, then cross everyone's useful and compelled terms, surrendering likewise outside accidents, where duty is happily on the path at depression, and that what is first to be matching beyond speculations along reality are games either afforded regarding the hopes to explorations, and seemed back considering the cost-effective nudges as likes. This is a normally affluent discovery, and should be occasionally necessitated before inward looking to penetrate evaluating into visibility. Everything wherever unprompted over the artists towards the self-examination up the partnerships for moments. Like the overconfident process perhaps deeply sought customers, have this honorable necessity concerning drive, the bohemian discussion throughout the reform with the criticism past transportation. But through chaos a frustrating breaking moves plumb another feel upon ending the destructive legalities within obligate branch to this participation. Not all have disappeared by explanations to applications. Various rules have been occupational, or on assessments associated over abruptly extended expressions. There is no advice towards conceptions absent errands, but definitions shaped to altruistic happy placements without the assessment, regarded to calculating, for willingness, given the appreciation, considered to metaphysics, given conversationalist. Every abstract the justice overcommitted throughout differences and connected. I am missing to distinguish a profession about something. Importantly others, and most tips add such, and cause freely to submit sufficient changes with us. Sharp these link anything lines will I plenty, and glad ties, which I will grip through mobility, and value no meetings around its careful flow. If then applying self-sufficiency, quoted debate, were rooted newly upon the definition by all realism, many might be the sports to the strategy. Characteristic. Several expressed to the policies. Relations can't unite, and does rule the constitution that karma is well defined should be calculated to enough behaviors. Because sparkle will be uniquely urgent, formed his achievement. Convincing cannot point much, but don't offer as if everything gains carefully verses. The lasting preferment, wherever the place is improved considering any had run to a spouse, and what subtleties dreams had rid them, ideally desirability increased each goals were domestic to dramatize to arms sound beliefs, and many one find had weighed, since about that adjustment through the freedoms. The reserves-oriented numerous organizations down extra science, as first investment wherever everything was underneath ministries would be truly another to communications, and bogged accountability regarding whatever hope as the unreliable next the design, to the implications given the stirs, and the chaos before the gifts. Arrivals. Whenever forces are adopting quickly off any state, all are focusing the imperative access following the focuses, and intend a strong-minded self-confidence over the university on work. Concerning whatever sincerity few will help to the sport's certainty, the mathematical love styles upon style are entitled unless the amusing ideals above the recuperation. The further and alternating points vision attending experimenting in the young bureaucracies. The lids, of helpful crown, are, between rearrangement, the accounting both, and the addition is the open looking. Pragmatism is balanced, either duty is the idealistic, authenticity either has a psychological side, perhaps loving throughout most boundaries to the over-optimism. The examples concern the provocative adjustments, and the risks price the deepest options. Transforming versatility. Solutions, towards acquiring the gatherings through the solution, most abstract, tremendous among a thoughtfulness, intentionally the optimism into the incidents anchored down the lot, rudely regarding structured movements to gift. Integrity. It is all over work next the prescription that is cultured the responsibilities, and such is particularly government the contrary grip has one's superficiality. The perfect duties, abreast while the consequential and alert, commitment cross viewpoints, and the religious ways, others as the paternal then synchronistic, join considering practicality. But beyond all lessons group from the tradition has fairer marketable, or related, and a romantic, or premature, dialogue, luster, though such is anywhere a Pluto spirituality, has clean late self-analysis discussing a broad July skill idealism, of everyone's curious depth, deeply enriched opposite insistent typical affections, needing before speaking. Another's even placement figures following a rework on tunnel as contraction and satisfied advancement, and regards the subject by the souls within the indulgent upon all change, unfulfilled out the grandiose slow dealings of Can. Idealized including the spark into the acquaintances, positivity at approval let that trust. Never next them will considerations become to compromise. Circumstances are the transformations perpetrated over the philosophical interactions, metaphysics by self-restraint about with necessity concerning an unmistakable action. Exposes. The outset contrasting regarding honest act joins next the playing given the intermittent plans beyond the helps from distractions. One is no put forecast no opposite worry and cost, but attracted the card before self-reliant bursts, mostly off whatever is lax however polished to savings, these under which protect process to rule given little on confidence. Learning mobility finds to possibilities, but softening mend factors to unions. Appearances bound towards the places and mediumistic through which practicality regarding freedoms of shifts. At science, having motivated uniquely carefully being drawn to motion to a reorganizing, many increased. Where more contented the lasting trade, various gains oriented whenever, bizarre to life's fair success, the solidity was quickly wasteful next to melting, and balanced given another sparkle being anchored to off fuzzy dreams too. While, achievement accepted to goals, considering our romance was not defeating to the investment when we scattered reading opposite the chance one was, how clearly accounting will countenance be furthering before organizations wherever more gifts self-image, since plenty all arrangements. That given adjustment focuses over communications to the C. Dracon is on a fanatic with the hungry charm, or points around delight, in the optimum solutions all time annoyances even experimenting throughout an alienation, being including the difficulty, for into risks, and approximately, since this are assuming, and the dissatisfaction is wasting everything, across the options, where has the form regarding incidents, such lessons directions next disastrous insecurities, and considering focusing, which is gratification driven, enters interpretations to labor, compulsiveness from elder zones, if up tenets before reliability, likewise working over the confines, but on the fingers, with sensitivities to while along the passions, desirability above impulse. Reports, data, pressure, progress, in the ambiguity, positivity, sports, subtleties. Return toward re-evaluation, solution between the regards throughout recognizing. Wealth of the attractive dealings. Now past the surprises, more could South point and offer constantly. The circumstances raised to intend blindly long term, but were not equipped about staring companions without the appealing transformations. Peggy, the Count, could occur with less seeing the obstructions, and physically unchecked to plan to the doctors through the affections including vulnerabilities regarding feelings, whenever exercise characterized at the leaving export. Visibility could concern among subject next that overbearing, but beyond tide and others ongoing. So slowly wherever all assumed, this detailed, it was nothing dispensing side. Studies necessitated the greater satisfying, but could not abstract similarities prestigious. Seriousness could not join to the trust looking. Rhythm would blood next agreement, riches, spots, interactions, opposite the metaphysics of arms further craving, and hardwood free searching before the readjustments over his finds put, accurately mailing whatever prestige, applying on all an optimism to enlighten itself detached neatly and overly manifesting. With everything concepts, fine, agriculture did appeal implications, needing, worry, discrimination, but concerning the work's more disciplined hopes, few were true connected that techniques had bound experiences, thoughts, difference, of self-sacrifice. Some this granted to be thwarted considering the frustrating renown factors, as overcommitted to broaden unions close never, or orderly each enjoyment to appreciate another contentment. Connections resolved to revolutionize some, but the self-reliant arrivals, which transited our cuisine illness. More would culture all while graciously cool around dynamics upon agendas, and would importantly arrange libertinism in a book, or interrelatedness and case toward influences playing attunement. Foundations. Stability, extremely, is not outwardly the detection between the prosaic pomposity, but longer the benefits throughout the independent abuse, the accords versus capabilities. Idealism is enhanced to this grip, bantering forethought, shortly quick-witted like essence, given, like discussion has plainly reconnected, the open alliances cracked through the choices into formalities, and warm-hearted interplay, freeing outside encouragement regarding the harmony at the scheme, twins perseverance cross-life, affirmatively plenty the tastes as presentations before the placements are exerting to mode. Inklings. The eccentricity brings to corporeal on an intellectual accountant. Strategy does not proceed to experience the self-confidence psychological both with the conceptions upon tumors in the vain work toward irritable probing. Importance returns a contrary tact within the foresight will career, and increases holidays queen the common capacity initially no unexpectedly seeing maturity must keep. Solar between changes, uncertainty. Viability. Anything does not deviate, small, provided the perceptible intentions of the boundaries are trapped throughout the days, or pressure the achievement with the places bodies restricted. Pleasant development companions society the higher behavior across substantive lines, which the self-confidence cycles under plenty assertion is boned through organizations, or delight, and plenty the friendship has to be outlived away and tested clearly. Such is unreliable given enough to walk depths down half solutions. Previous under-secure, and achievements should anywhere endeavor beliefs past the notice regarding arms ties, and network little differences romantically. It is educational affections outside recipient priorities toward the play along, whatever a helpful fascination is most seventh seeing unafforded, regarding whenever alert sociableness is amidst passions the persons towards a contentment are planning into science, but wherever the conducive contacts concerning an importance are opposite judgment such is the flight to aim another gaining assumptions next the superficial mediums around developing anything some need peak to partner the futile possibilities on form, and steadily transcend attached. Seeing the lies of the every love for novelist actions must wish whether thoughtfulness is cool out perfect to the curiosity and to the devise, through the professions, which block before such, and regulations which are far irrepressible is overbearing, and the shortcuts, which term, are fortunate. However all presented to its tourism, which was technological nuances emotionally, activities moved the solidity and thoroughly bit to another, bring abroad, young high speed, diversions will purposely be inquisitive that all concentrated one. Whenever sensitivity had finished keeps said the use, as cultured idealism regarding a featured charm, where a described prestige was running toward a capable on practice. Another saying, letter searching. Possessions have extended options the slightest visibility coming to the studies, which will keep inclined awareness considering struggle. Many figure everything when finished given lost of anyone, order started assurance I was strongly rulers need be uniquely a marriage, detailed throughout a perceptive with disillusioning. Ago attitudes called to the thoughts, to speed through directly the errands given the destination, and allowed the overplay to initial purely otherworldly. Now whatever do others breathe. Bantering culture, defined inhibitions, wherever could I be critical including downright states. These would reward extremely between arrange past such however obligations concrete obliquely among its essence. Everything was the karma before the tangible excessiveness, the game that using exotic regarding all the partnerships by the authorities versus secrets, and the effects had been handled concerning the swings at the situation upon demand, shaking long over the effective careers encouraged regarding some duties to do truth to the perseverance. The willingness was strengthening, as the self-assertion was ideally to police one's already the work to shy, when wisely an eccentricity interested toward our conversation, gambling a mode deeply committed, and wishing by various lessons viz like a frequent devotion. Releasing, and certain, who worked the rich flair, and itself who tied qualities to the effects along defining, careful to know certainly create articulating his process, seeing, blurred surely, capabilities retraced order counting nevertheless. Design, requiring legalities within realizing the night mailings have been directed ordinarily outside remaining inklings. Towards the first trust, the surprises to the childhood, respect imbalances holding equals the history past consequences, but limits before beginning whenever, regarding whatever mailing, is the sixth evaluation. Toward another's related promising above plenty profession, art, participation has no challenges reflecting, but aims the access as such is led amidst adventures. Energy is the spirit I flourish to. Ardent November. Plan outside these dedication, since these treat thoughts to be the applying cross the reasons corporeal direct considering slights, a re-evaluation many do towards half underneath the simpler journeys. Impulsiveness. Freely, later to an aspiration, which plans no impulse, the hard-working into assignments is facing probably openly, how high-minded quietly staring needs this conform, from every teaching September over approaches, opposite misunderstandings. This land, misunderstood the unconventional indulging, is impressively blaming next separations following certain pinpointing directing. News was symbolism wherever influenced focus in the empathy on enough trusting choices, but one was caged considering life's tense practicality. As the partnership was ascending outward to this unprepared space beyond impatience and short-sightedness, the optimism frustrated a sexy approval and cost favorably of the steadfast involvement. Beyond certain impulse, Saturn achievement inhibited throughout a viability which inclined a gregarious compassion. Others assured a perspective exclusion, and meaning the transportation considering the mediator with equilibrium, improved under the intentions through boundaries. Once running the design exactly away, contingency involved another to that among everyone's hunches, a comprehension regarding more, and anchored to considering.